Two things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity, and I'm not sure about the universe. There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. I am enough of an artist to draw freely upon my imagination. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. If you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. Logic will get you from A to Z, imagination will get you everywhere. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. I speak to everyone in the same way, whether he is the garbage man or the president of the university. Never memorize something that you can look up. When you are courting a nice girl, an hour seems like a second. When you sit on a red-hot cinder, a second seems like an hour. That's relativity. A clever person solves a problem. A wise person avoids it. Science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind. Any fool can know. The point is to understand. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. If we knew what it was we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. A human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feeling as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Try not to become a man of success. Rather become a man of value. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existence. One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery each day. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. Once you can accept the universe as matter expanding into nothing that is something, wearing stripes with plaid comes easy. The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art and true science. I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. I see my life in terms of music. You never fail until you stop trying. Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. Gravitation is not responsible for people falling in love. It is not that I'm so smart. But I stay with the questions much longer. Creativity is intelligence having fun. The world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but Because of the people who don't do anything about it. If A is a success in life, then A equals X plus Y plus Z. Work is X, Y is play, and Z is keeping your mouth shut. Black holes are where God divided by zero. Everything must be made as simple as possible. But not simpler. The best way to cheer yourself is to cheer somebody else up. Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters. When you trip over love, it is easy to get up. But when you fall in love, it is impossible to stand again. What is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right. Peace cannot be kept by force, it can only be achieved by understanding. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. A question that sometimes drives me hazy: am I or are the others crazy? Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. The pursuit of truth and beauty is a sphere of activity in which we are permitted to remain children all our lives. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. We dance for laughter, we dance for tears, we dance for madness, we dance for fears. We dance for hopes, we dance for screams, we are the dancers, we create the dreams. The woman who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. The woman who walks alone is likely to find herself in places no one has ever been before. Time is an illusion. It would be possible to describe everything scientifically, but it would make no sense. It would be without meaning, as if you described a Beethoven symphony as a variation of wave pressure. I must be willing to give up what I am in order to become what I will be. Love is a better master than duty. Imagination is more important than knowledge. No amount of experimentation can ever prove me right, a single experiment can prove me wrong. Nothing will benefit human health and increase the chances for survival of life on Earth as much as the evolution to a vegetarian diet. A table, a chair, a bowl of fruit and a violin, what else does a man need to be happy? I don't try to imagine a personal God, it suffices to stand in awe at the structure of the world, insofar as it allows our inadequate senses to appreciate it. Excellence is doing a common thing in an uncommon way. Never do anything against conscience, even if the state demands it. We are in the position of a little child entering a huge library, whose walls are covered to the ceiling with books in many different languages. The child knows that someone must have written those books. It does not know who or how. It does not understand the languages in which they are written. The child notes a definite plan in the arrangement of the books, a mysterious order, which it does not comprehend but only dimly suspects. Out of clutter, find simplicity. From discord, find harmony. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. How I wish that somewhere there existed an island for those who are wise and of good will. It gives me great pleasure indeed to see the stubbornness of an incorrigible nonconformist warmly acclaimed. You see, wire telegraph is a kind of a very, very long cat. You pull his tail in New York, and his head is meowing in Los Angeles. Do you understand this? And radio operates exactly the same way. You send signals here, they receive them there. The only difference is that there is no cat. Now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That means nothing. People like us, who believe in physics, know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. It is better to believe than to disbelieve. In doing you bring everything to the realm of possibility. Something deeply hidden had to be behind things. We sleep 1/3 of our lives away. I don't pretend to understand the universe, it's much bigger than I am. One had to cram all this stuff into one's mind for the examinations, whether one liked it or not. This coercion had such a deterring effect on me that, after I had passed the final examination, I found the consideration of any scientific problems distasteful to me for an entire year. The definition of genius is taking the complex and making it simple. La vie c'est comme la bicyclette, quand on arrive de pédaler en tombe. I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots. Creativity is contagious. Pass it on. The value of a man should be seen in what he gives and not in what he is able to receive. There comes a time when the mind takes a higher plane of knowledge but can never prove how it got there. Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man, and one in the face of which we with our modest powers must feel humble. Creativity is the residue of time wasted. In order to be an immaculate member of a flock of sheep, one must above all be a sheep. I do not believe in the God of theology who rewards good and punishes evil. My God created laws that take care of that. His universe is not ruled by wishful thinking, but by immutable laws. The fanatical atheists are like slaves who are still feeling the weight of their chains which they have thrown off after hard struggle. They are creatures who, in their grudge against traditional religion as the opium of the masses, cannot hear the music of the spheres. Many of the things you can count, don't count. Many of the things you can't count, really count. Why is it that no one understands me and everybody likes me? I have never looked upon ease and happiness as ends in themselves. This critical basis I call the ideal of a pigsty. The ideals that have lighted my way, and time after time have given me new courage to face life cheerfully, have been kindness, beauty, and truth. Without the sense of kinship with men of like mind, without the occupation with the objective world, the eternally unattainable in the field of art and scientific endeavors, life would have seemed empty to me. The trite objects of human efforts, possessions, outward success, luxury, have always seemed to me contemptible. But without deeper reflection one knows from daily life that one exists for other people, first of all for those upon whose smiles and well-being our own happiness is wholly dependent, and then for the many, unknown to us, to whose destinies we are bound by the ties of sympathy. Honestly, I cannot understand what people mean when they talk about the freedom of the human will. I have a feeling, for instance, that I will something or other, but what relation this has with freedom I cannot understand at all. I feel that I will to light my pipe and I do it, but how can I connect this up with the idea of freedom? What is behind the act of willing to light the pipe? Another act of willing. Schopenhauer once said, Der Mensch kann was will, kann aber nicht wollen was will, man can do what he will but he cannot will what he wills. I am not more gifted than the average human being. If you know anything about history, you would know that is so what hard times I had in studying and the fact that I do not have a memory like some other people do. I am just more curious than the average person and I will not give up on a problem until I have found the proper solution. This is one of my greatest satisfactions in life, solving problems, and the harder they are, the more satisfaction do I get out of them. Maybe you could consider me a bit more patient in continuing with my problem than is the average human being. Now, if you understand what I have just told you, you see that it is not a matter of being more gifted but a matter of being more curious and maybe more patient until you solve a problem. Be a voice, not an echo. The religion of the future will be cosmic religion. It will transcend personal God and avoid dogma and theology. Necessity is the mother of all invention. When we first got married, we made a pact. It was this: in our life together, it was decided I would make all of the big decisions and my wife would make all of the little decisions. For 50 years, we have held true to that agreement. I believe that is the reason for the success in our marriage. However, the strange thing is that in 50 years, there hasn't been one big decision. The pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, an almost fanatical love of justice, and the desire for personal independence, these are the features of the Jewish tradition which make me thank my stars that I belong to it. That which is impenetrable to us really exists. Behind the secrets of nature remains something subtle, intangible, and inexplicable. Veneration for this force beyond anything that we can comprehend is my religion. It is humankind's duty to respect all life. Not only animals have feelings but even also trees and plants. Everyone should be respected as an individual, but no one idolized. A photograph never grows old. You and I change, people change all through the months and years, but a photograph always remains the same. How nice to look at a photograph of mother or father taken many years ago. You see them as you remember them. But as people live on, they change completely. That is why I think a photograph can be kind. Rejoice with your family in the beautiful land of life. A calm and modest life brings more happiness than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness. Imperial Hotel Note Paper, Tokyo, Japan, 1922 inch. How can cosmic religious feeling be communicated from one person to another, if it can give rise to no definite notion of a God and no theology? In my view, it is the most important function of art and science to awaken this feeling and keep it alive in those who are receptive to it. On the occasion of Mahatma Gandhi's 70th birthday, generations to come, it may well be, will scarce believe that such a man as this one ever in flesh and blood walked upon this earth. Weak people revenge. Strong people forgive. Intelligent people ignore. Since the mathematicians have invaded the theory of relativity, I do not understand it myself anymore. We should take care not to make the intellect our God. It has, of course, powerful muscles, but no personality. My pacifism is an instinctive feeling, a feeling that possesses me because the murder of men is disgusting. My attitude is not derived from any intellectual theory but is based on my deepest antipathy to every kind of cruelty and hatred. Failing isn't bad when you learn what not to do. The significant problems we have cannot be solved at the same level of thinking with which we created them. Success equals 1 part work plus 1 part play plus 1 part keep your mouth shut. If the bee disappeared off the surface of the globe, then man would have only 4 years of life left. No more bees, no more pollination, no more plants, no more animals, no more man. Earth is the insane asylum of the universe. Strange is our situation here upon Earth. Each of us comes for a short visit, not knowing why, yet sometimes seeming to a divine purpose. From the standpoint of daily life, however, there is one thing we do know, that we are here for the sake of other men, above all for those upon whose smile and well-being our own happiness depends, for the countless unknown souls with whose fate we are connected by a bond of sympathy. Many times a day, I realize how much my outer and inner life is built upon the labors of people, both living and dead, and how earnestly I must exert myself in order to give in return as much as I have received and am still receiving. Setting an example is not the main means of influencing others, it is the only means. There is nothing known as perfect. It's only those imperfections which we choose not to see. Concerning matter, we have been all wrong. What we have called matter is energy, whose vibration has been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. We are all life trying to live, among other life trying to live. It is every man's obligation to put back into the world at least the equivalent of what he takes out of it. It is a miracle that curiosity survives formal education. The most important human endeavor is the striving for morality in our actions. Our inner balance and even our very existence depend on it. Only morality in our actions can give beauty and dignity to life. The person who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. The person who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever seen before. A perfection of means, and confusion of aims, seems to be our main problem. Generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this ever in flesh and blood walked upon this earth. Said of Mahatma Gandhi. The religion of the future will be a cosmic religion. It should transcend a personal God and avoid dogmas and theology. Covering both the natural and the spiritual, it should be based on a religious sense arising from the experience of all things, natural and spiritual, as a meaningful unity. Buddhism answers this description. We act as though comfort and luxury were the chief requirements of life. All that we need to make us happy is something to be enthusiastic about. It was, of course, a lie what you read about my religious convictions, a lie which is being systematically repeated. I do not believe in a personal God, and I have never denied this, but have expressed it clearly. If something is in me which can be called religious, then it is the unbounded admiration for the structure of the world so far as our science can reveal it. If I could do it all again, I'd be a plumber. The most important question a person can ask is the universe a friendly place? Every day I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labors of other men, living and dead, and that I must exert myself in order to give in the same measure as I have received and am still receiving. The value of a college education is not the learning of many facts but the training of the mind to think. Technological progress is like an axe in the hands of a pathological criminal. Ego equals 1/knowledge. More the knowledge, lesser the ego, lesser the knowledge, more the ego. The person who reads too much and uses his brain too little will fall into lazy habits of thinking. I am a deeply religious non-believer. This is a somewhat new kind of religion. Failure is success in progress. I didn't arrive at my understanding of the fundamental laws of the universe through my rational mind. Strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. I do not teach anyone, I only provide the environment in which they can learn. I don't know, I don't care, and it doesn't make any difference. 3 rules of work. Out of clutter find simplicity. From discord find harmony. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Your imagination is your preview of life's coming attractions. For an idea that does not first seem insane, there is no hope. As the area of light expands, so does the perimeter of darkness. I know quite certainly that I myself have no special talent, curiosity, obsession and dogged endurance, combined with self-criticism, have brought me to my ideas. The strength of the Constitution lies entirely in the determination of each citizen to defend it. Only if every single citizen feels duty-bound to do his share in this defense are the constitutional rights secure. If I had known they were going to do this, I would have become a shoemaker. Striving for social justice is the most valuable thing to do in life. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. I asked myself childish questions and proceeded to answer them. In the view of such harmony in the cosmos which I, with my limited human mind, am able to recognize, there are yet people who says there is no God. But what makes me really angry is that they quote me for support of such views. The expanded quotable Einstein, Princeton University, page 214. A man's ethical behavior should be based effectually on sympathy, education, and social ties and needs. No religious basis is necessary. Man would indeed be in a poor way if he had to be restrained by fear of punishment and hope of reward after death. I think 99 times and find nothing. I stop thinking, swim in silence, and the truth comes to me. The man with the greatest soul will always face the greatest war with the low-minded person. The only thing you absolutely have to know is the location of the library. Intelligent life on other planets? I'm not even sure there is on Earth. Curiosity is more important than knowledge. I am a Jew, but I am enthralled by the luminous figure of the Nazarene. No one can read the Gospels without feeling the actual presence of Jesus. The prestige of government has undoubtedly been lowered considerably by the Prohibition law. For nothing is more destructive of respect for the government and the law of the land than passing laws which cannot be enforced. The further the spiritual evolution of mankind advances, the more certain it seems to me that the path to genuine religiosity does not lie through the fear of life, and the fear of death, and blind faith, but through striving after rational knowledge. I believe that Gandhi's views were the most enlightened of all the political men in our time. We should strive to do things in his spirit, not to use violence in fighting for our cause, but by non-participation in anything you believe is evil. Strange is our situation here on earth. Each of us comes for a short visit, not knowing why, yet sometimes seeming to divine a purpose. From the standpoint of daily life, however, there is one thing we do know, that man is here for the sake of other men, above all for those upon whose smiles and well-being our own happiness depends. Small is the number of them that see with their own eyes and feel with their own hearts. Be a loner. That gives you time to wonder, to search for the truth. Have holy curiosity. Make your life worth living. I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the lawful harmony of the world, not in a God who concerns himself with the fate and the doings of mankind. To Rabbi Herbert Goldstein, 1929. As our circle of knowledge expands, so does the circumference of darkness surrounding it. Everything that is really great and inspiring is created by the individual who can labor in freedom. Unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth. Intelligence is not the ability to store information, but to know where to find it. You do not really understand something unless you can explain it to your grandmother. Anyone who doesn't take truth seriously in small matters cannot be trusted in large ones either. Our separation from each other is an optical illusion. Everyone must become their own person, however frightful that may be. Put your hand on a hot stove for a minute, and it seems like an hour. Sit with a pretty girl for an hour, and it seems like a minute. That's relativity. One cannot alter a condition with the same mindset that created it in the first place. I am not a genius, I am just curious. I ask many questions. And when the answer is simple, then God is answering. To punish me for my contempt for authority, fate made me an authority myself. A society's competitive advantage will come not from how well its schools teach the multiplication and periodic tables, but from how well they stimulate imagination and creativity. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead, his eyes are closed. I believe in intuition and inspiration. Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. It is, strictly speaking, a real factor in scientific research. Do not grow old, no matter how long you live. Never cease to stand like curious children before the great mystery into which we were born. Always do what's right, this will gratify some and astonish the rest. Older men start wars, but younger men fight them. The release of atomic power has changed everything except our way of thinking. The solution to this problem lies in the heart of mankind. If only I had known, I should have become a watchmaker. 1945. Gravitation cannot be held responsible for people falling in love. How on earth can you explain in terms of chemistry and physics so important a biological phenomenon as first love? Put your hand on a stove for a minute and it seems like an hour. Sit with that special girl for an hour and it seems like a minute. That's relativity. It occurred to me by intuition, and music was the driving force behind that intuition. My discovery was the result of musical perception. Adversity introduces a man to himself. The bigotry of the non-believer is for me nearly as funny as the bigotry of the believer. Truth is what stands the test of experience. Those who have the privilege to know have the duty to act. What I see in nature is a magnificent structure that we can comprehend only very imperfectly, and that must fill a thinking person with a feeling of humility. This is a genuinely religious feeling that has nothing to do with mysticism. I do not at all believe in human freedom in the philosophical sense. Schopenhauer's saying, "A man can do what he wants, but not will what he wants," has been a very real inspiration to me since my youth. It has been a continual consolation in the face of life's hardships, my own and others, and an unfailing wellspring of tolerance. This realization mercifully mitigates the easily paralyzing sense of responsibility and prevents us from taking ourselves and other people too seriously. It is conducive to a view of life which, in part, gives humor its due. Pure mathematics is in its way the poetry of logical ideas. It is my conviction that killing under the cloak of war is nothing but an act of murder. The most important decision we make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or hostile universe. To dwell on the things that depress or anger us does not help in overcoming them. One must knock them down alone. Problems cannot be solved with the same mindset that created them. The formulation of the problem is often more essential than its solution, which may be merely a matter of mathematical or experimental skill. One of the strongest motives that lead men to art and science is escape from everyday life with its painful crudity and hopeless dreariness, from the fetters of one's own ever-shifting desires. A finely tempered nature longs to escape from the personal life into the world of objective perception and thought. The intellect has little to do on the road to discovery. There comes a leap in consciousness, call it intuition or what you will, the solution comes to you and you don't know how or why. Creating a new theory is not like destroying an old barn and erecting a skyscraper in its place. It is rather like climbing a mountain, gaining new and wider views, discovering unexpected connections between our starting points and its rich environment. But the point from which we started out still exists and can be seen, although it appears smaller and forms a tiny part of our broad view gained by the mastery of the obstacles on our adventurous way up. Blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth. I never made one of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking. We all know that light travels faster than sound. That's why certain people appear bright until you hear them speak. Once we accept our limits, we go beyond them. Genius is 1% talent and 99% hard work. Nothing happens until something moves. If you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or things. I'd rather be an optimist and a fool than a pessimist and right. Out of clutter, find simplicity. Our task must be to free ourselves, by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. Wisdom is not a product of schooling but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. Few are those who see with their own eyes and feel with their own hearts. Imagination is the highest form of research. I live in that solitude which is painful in youth, but delicious in the years of maturity. However rare true love may be, it is less so than true friendship. Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world, and all there ever will be to know and understand. God does not play dice with the universe. The most incomprehensible thing about the world is that it is at all comprehensible. Only those who attempt the absurd can achieve the impossible. The only thing that you absolutely have to know is the location of the library. You can never solve a problem on the level on which it was created. I never think of the future, it comes soon enough. Reading, after a certain age, diverts the mind too much from its creative pursuits. Any man who reads too much and uses his own brain too little falls into lazy habits of thinking. What a sad era when it is easier to smash an atom than a prejudice. Look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. Weakness of attitude becomes weakness of character. It has become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity. From the standpoint of daily life, however, there is one thing we do know, that we are here for the sake of each other, above all for those upon whose smile and well-being our own happiness depends, and also for the countless unknown souls with whose fate we are connected by a bond of sympathy. Many times a day I realize how much my own outer and inner life is built upon the labors of my fellow men, both living and dead, and how earnestly I must exert myself in order to give and return as much as I have received. Few people are capable of expressing with equanimity opinions which differ from the prejudices of their social environment. Most people are incapable of forming such opinions. A true genius admits that she knows nothing. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem, and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. Do not worry about your difficulties in mathematics. I can assure you mine are still greater. The hardest thing in the world to understand is the income tax. If there is any religion that could respond to the needs of modern science, it would be Buddhism. If people are good only because they fear punishment and hope for reward, then we are a sorry lot indeed. You cannot simultaneously prevent and prepare for war. Common sense is the collection of prejudices acquired by age 18. My religion consists of a humble admiration of the illimitable superior spirit who reveals himself in the slight details we are able to perceive with our frail and feeble mind. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and all science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead, his eyes are closed. I believe in intuitions and inspirations. I sometimes feel that I am right. I do not know that I am. If at first the idea is not absurd, then there is no hope for it. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science. He to whom the emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead, his eyes are closed. The insight into the mystery of life, coupled though it be with fear, has also given rise to religion. To know what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their most primitive forms. This knowledge, this feeling is at the center of true religiousness. The revolution introduced me to art, and in turn, art introduced me to the revolution. Life is a preparation for the future, and the best preparation for the future is to live as if there were none. I cannot imagine a God who rewards and punishes the objects of his creation, whose purposes are modeled after our own, a God, in short, who is but a reflection of human frailty. Neither can I believe that the individual survives the death of his body. Although feeble souls harbor such thoughts through fear or ridiculous egotisms. When I examine myself and my methods of thought, I come to the conclusion that the gift of fantasy has meant more to me than any talent for abstract, positive thinking. No, this trick won't work. How on earth are you ever going to explain in terms of chemistry and physics so important a biological phenomenon as first love? Even on the most solemn occasions I got away without wearing socks and hid that lack of civilization in high boots. All religions, arts and sciences are branches of the same tree. All these aspirations are directed toward ennobling man's life, lifting it from the sphere of mere physical existence and leading the individual towards freedom. Everything is determined, the beginning as well as the end, by forces over which we have no control. It is determined for the insect, as well as for the star. Human beings, vegetables, or cosmic dust, we all dance to a mysterious tune, intoned in the distance by an invisible piper. Play is the highest form of research. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it. God is subtle, but he is not malicious. A man should look for what is, and not for what he thinks should be. Although I am a typical loner in my daily life, my awareness of belonging to the invisible community of those who strive for truth, beauty, and justice has prevented me from feelings of isolation. Student is not a container you have to fill but a torch you have to light up. It is, in fact, nothing short of a miracle that the modern methods of instruction have not yet entirely strangled the holy curiosity of inquiry, for this delicate little plant, aside from stimulation, stands mainly in need of freedom. Without this it goes to rack and ruin without fail. Einstein was once asked how many feet are in a mile. Einstein's reply was, "I don't know. Why should I fill my brain with facts I can find in 2 minutes in any standard reference book?" The only sure way to avoid making mistakes is to have no new ideas. Dancers are the athletes of God. You have to learn the rules of the game. And then you have to play better than anyone else. Life isn't worth living, unless it is lived for someone else. The only escape from the miseries of life are music and cats. It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge. As far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain, and as far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. The true value of a human being can be found in the degree to which he has attained liberation from the self. 3 great forces rule the world: stupidity, fear, and greed. A foolish faith in authority is the worst enemy of truth. If my theory of relativity is proven successful, Germany will claim me as a German. And France will declare me a citizen of the world. Should my theory prove untrue, France will say that I am a German, and Germany will declare that I am a Jew. Nationalism is an infantile thing. It is the measles of mankind. The only source of knowledge is experience. Past is dead. Future is uncertain. Present is all you have. So eat, drink, and live merry. An empty stomach is not a good political advisor. I see my life in terms of music. My passionate sense of social justice and social responsibility has always contrasted oddly with my pronounced lack of need for direct contact with other human beings and human communities. I am truly a lone traveler, and have never belonged to my country, my home, my friends, or even my immediate family, with my whole heart. In the face of all these ties, I have never lost a sense of distance and a need for solitude. It is harder to crack prejudice than an atom. I thought of that while riding my bicycle. Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. The mediocre mind is incapable of understanding the man who refuses to bow blindly to conventional prejudices and chooses instead to express his opinions courageously and honestly. At least once a day, allow yourself the freedom to think and dream for yourself. Force always attracts men of low morality. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings, as something separate from the rest. A kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Before God we are all equally wise, and equally foolish. If most of us are ashamed of shabby clothes and shoddy furniture, let us be more ashamed of shabby ideas and shoddy philosophies. It would be a sad situation if the wrapper were better than the meat wrapped inside it. It seems to me that the idea of a personal God is an anthropological concept which I cannot take seriously. I also cannot imagine some will or goal outside the human sphere. Science has been charged with undermining morality, but the charge is unjust. A man's ethical behavior should be based effectually on sympathy, education, and social ties and needs. No religious basis is necessary. Man would indeed be in a poor way if he had to be restrained by fear of punishment and hope of reward after death. Solitude is painful when one is young, but delightful when one is more mature. Learning is experience. Everything else is just information. Everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. What really interests me is whether God had any choice in the creation of the world. The human spirit must prevail over technology. Teaching should be such that what is offered is perceived as a valuable gift and not as hard duty. Never regard study as duty but as the enviable opportunity to learn to know the liberating influence of beauty in the realm of the spirit for your own personal joy, and to the profit of the community to which your later work belongs. He who joyfully marches to music rank and file has already earned my contempt. He has been given a large brain by mistake, since for him the spinal cord would surely suffice. This disgrace to civilization should be done away with at once. Heroism at command, senseless brutality, deplorable love of country stance, and all the loathsome nonsense that goes by the name of patriotism. How violently I hate all this. How despicable and ignoble war is. I would rather be torn to shreds than be part of so base an action. It is my conviction that killing under the cloak of war is nothing but an act of murder. The only real valuable thing is intuition. Your question is the most difficult in the world. It is not a question I can answer simply with yes or no. I am not an atheist. I do not know if I can define myself as a pantheist. The problem involved is too vast for our limited minds. May I not reply with a parable? The human mind, no matter how highly trained, cannot grasp the universe. We are in the position of a little child, entering a huge library whose walls are covered to the ceiling with books in many different tongues. The child knows that someone must have written those books. It does not know who or how. It does not understand the languages in which they are written. The child notes a definite plan in the arrangement of the books, a mysterious order, which it does not comprehend, but only dimly suspects. That, it seems to me, is the attitude of the human mind, even the greatest and most cultured, toward God. We see a universe marvelously arranged, obeying certain laws, but we understand the laws only dimly. Our limited minds cannot grasp the mysterious force that sways the constellations. I am fascinated by Spinoza's pantheism. I admire even more his contributions to modern thought. Spinoza is the greatest of modern philosophers, because he is the first philosopher who deals with the soul and the body as one, not as two separate things. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge but imagination. It is my view that the vegetarian manner of living, by its purely physical effect on the human temperament, would most beneficially influence the lot of mankind. The tragedy of life is what dies inside a man while he lives. Laws alone cannot secure freedom of expression, in order that every man present his views without penalty. There must be spirit of tolerance in the entire population. Somebody who only reads newspapers and at best books of contemporary authors. Looks to me like an extremely nearsighted person who scorns eyeglasses. He is completely dependent on the prejudices and fashions of his times, since he never gets to see or hear anything else. When the solution is simple, God is answering. We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. A person starts to live when he can live outside himself. The only thing that interferes with my learning is my education. I want to know God's thoughts, the rest are mere details. Intellectual growth should commence at birth and cease only at death. One thing I have learned in a long life, that all our science, measured against reality, is primitive and childlike, and yet it is the most precious thing we have. The ideals which have always shone before me and filled me with joy are goodness, beauty, and truth. Information is not knowledge. The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. If I were to remain silent, I'd be guilty of complicity. We know from daily life that we exist for other people first of all, for whose smiles and well-being our own happiness depends. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be changed from one form to another. I never teach my pupils, I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn. The word God is for me nothing more than the expression and product of human weaknesses, the Bible a collection of honorable, but still primitive legends which are nevertheless pretty childish. No interpretation, no matter how subtle, can, for me, change this. Possessions, outward success, publicity, luxury, to me these have always been contemptible. I believe that a simple and unassuming manner of life is best for everyone, best for both the body and the mind. This topic brings me to that worst outcrop of herd life, the military system, which I abhor. This plague spot of civilization ought to be abolished with all possible speed. Heroism on command, senseless violence, and all the loathsome nonsense that goes by the name of patriotism, how passionately I hate them. The fear of death is the most unjustified of all fears, for there's no risk of accident for someone who's dead. Paper is to write things down that we need to remember. Our brains are used to think. The devil has put a penalty on all things we enjoy in life. Either we suffer in health or we suffer in soul or we get fat. The religious geniuses of all ages have been distinguished by this kind of religious feeling, which knows no dogma and no God conceived in man's image, so that there can be no church whose central teachings are based on it. Hence it is precisely among the heretics of every age that we find men who were filled with this highest kind of religious feeling and were in many cases regarded by their contemporaries as atheists, sometimes also as saints. Looked at in this light, men like Democritus, Francis of Assisi, and Spinoza are closely akin to one another. Bear in mind that the wonderful things you learn in your schools are the work of many generations. All this is put in your hands as your inheritance in order that you may receive it, honor it, add to it, and one day faithfully hand it on to your children. To sense that behind anything that can be experienced there is a something that our mind cannot grasp and whose beauty and sublimity reaches us only indirectly and as a feeble reflection, this is religiousness. In this sense I am religious. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Once a day allow yourself the freedom to dream. Any society which does not insist upon respect for all life must necessarily decay. The really valuable thing in the pageant of human life seems to me not the political state, but the creative, sentient individual, the personality. It alone creates the noble and the sublime, while the herd as such remains dull in thought and dull in feeling. Organized people are just too lazy to go looking for what they want. The man who regards his own life and that of his fellow creatures as meaningless is not merely unfortunate but almost disqualified for life. Knowledge exists in two forms, lifeless, stored in books, and alive, in the consciousness of men. The second form of existence is after all the essential one. The first, indispensable as it may be, occupies only an inferior position. Combinatory play seems to be the essential feature in productive thought. If one tries to navigate unknown waters, one runs the risk of shipwreck. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge but imagination. I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious. Once you stop learning, you start dying. Only one who devotes himself to a cause with his whole strength and soul can be a true master. For this reason, mastery demands all of a person. Joy in looking and comprehending is nature's most beautiful gift. The gift of fantasy has meant more to me than my talent for absorbing positive knowledge. The future is not a gift, it is an achievement. It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. I fully agree with you about the significance and educational value of methodology as well as history and philosophy of science. So many people today, and even professional scientists, seem to me like somebody who has seen thousands of trees but has never seen a forest. A knowledge of the historic and philosophical background gives that kind of independence from prejudices of his generation from which most scientists are suffering. This independence created by philosophical insight is, in my opinion, the mark of distinction between a mere artisan or specialist and a real seeker after truth. I maintain that the cosmic religious feeling is the strongest and noblest motive for scientific research. One picture is worth 1,000 words. If tomorrow were never to come, it would not be worth living today. People love chopping wood. In this activity one immediately sees results. My sense of God is my sense of wonder about the universe.